What if the things you throw away could become the most beautiful part of your home? In this video, we won't just decorate, we'll transform. From broken jugs, old roots, and forgotten scraps, into peaceful, natural garden art that fits even the tiniest space. Welcome to Simply DIY, the place where small hands, big ideas, and everyday trash create quiet magic. Every idea here is just that, an idea. A spark to guide your own creativity. Take what you see, use what you have, and make it your own. And if you have questions or thoughts, feel free to drop them in the comments. I read every single one. Maybe I'm just another voice online. But behind this screen is a small dream, and a real family trying to build something meaningful. Your subscribe isn't just a number. It's belief. It's hope. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for seeing me. In a quiet corner of a sunlit patio, nature and craft embrace like old friends. Here stands a humble table, not carved from uniform lines of factory wood, but born from the earth itself. Its legs, gnarled roots once hidden beneath forest soil, now rise with pride, carrying the weight of stories and the stillness of morning tea. Creating a root-legged table is not just a project, it's a poetic conversation with time. The twisted, aged roots are never the same twice. Each one curves in defiance of symmetry, holding memories of wind, rain, and the long, slow patience of growth. You don't tame these roots. You celebrate them. To build something like this, you don't need perfection. You need presence. Choose a root system that speaks to you, perhaps from a fallen tree in your backyard, or a forgotten stump by the river. Clean it gently, preserve its texture, and let it breathe. Pair it with a reclaimed wooden slab. Let the surface remain slightly raw. Let it speak. Position your table in a place where the light can dance, near a fence covered in vines, or beneath a canopy of leaves. Add a simple chair, a clay cup, maybe a bowl of lemons. Suddenly, your patio becomes a sanctuary. Because in this table, there's more than design. There's memory. There's transformation. There's a reminder that even discarded roots can hold up beauty, if only we take the time to see it. There's a quiet kind of joy in giving old things a second life, and sometimes it starts with nothing more than yesterday's newspaper. In the warmth of a sunny backyard or the calm of a kitchen table, a few strips of paper twist and turn, becoming something soft yet sturdy, imperfect yet full of purpose. Woven by hand, each pot holds more than just soil and seeds. It carries patience, intention, and the kind of beauty that doesn't shout. The process is surprisingly calming. Strips of newspaper, soaked slightly to make them flexible, are woven around a base, maybe a glass jar or a tin can, giving form and structure to the pot. Some people leave the black and white print exposed for that vintage charm. Others paint over it in pastels or earthy tones. There's no right way, only your way. These pots breathe life into small herbs like basil and mint, or cradle bright bursts of color like petunias and marigolds. They're perfect for windowsills, small patios, or wooden shelves that crave a little soul. And beyond their charm, these newspaper pots are compostable, gentle on the earth, just as they were born from it. They remind us that creativity doesn't need to be expensive, or perfect, or fast. Sometimes it's enough to slow down, to touch something with our hands, and to grow something, even if it's small. In a world that moves quickly, a woven newspaper pot whispers, reuse, reimagine, regrow. things grow old with grace, like terracotta jugs, once used to carry water under the summer sun, now resting in quiet corners, cradling blossoms instead of burdens. There's something deeply grounding about placing a clay jug in your garden or on your patio. It doesn't shout for attention. It waits. And when you fill it with soil, tuck in a few seeds, or gently press flowering roots into its mouth, it becomes a vessel of new beginnings, unexpected yet familiar. To start, find an old jug. It doesn't matter if the surface is cracked or stained. In fact, that's part of its charm. Tilt it slightly if you'd like the flowers to spill out, like a gentle cascade of color. Or let it stand upright, proud and full, holding life close to its chest. You can plant anything that loves a cozy space, trailing petunias, lavender for a soft fragrance, or even edible herbs that stretch gently toward the sun. Place it beside a bench where you often read, or in the nook where the morning light lingers just a little longer. That's the beauty of it, the way it belongs wherever you allow it to be. Over time, moss may gather at its base, and the terracotta may deepen in tone. And you'll find that what began as a simple DIY project has quietly become part of the soul of your space. Because sometimes, the most beautiful transformations are not loud or dramatic. They're humble, they're handmade, and they remind us that stillness, too, can bloom. Sometimes, the most charming corners of a garden are not built from expensive tools or rare materials, but from the soft patience of hands that see beauty in the overlooked. An old plastic bottle, clear and forgotten, may not seem like much, but cut with care, painted with love, and tied gently onto a fence, it transforms. It becomes a cradle for herbs, a pocket for wildflowers, a small, colorful echo of our creativity, whispering along the edge of a wooden fence. Start by choosing bottles that are light and easy to cut. The shape doesn't matter as much as what you imagine it becoming. Some are sliced lengthwise to hold soil and roots. Others are trimmed into flower-like patterns, catching the light like stained glass when painted in cheerful tones. You can use wire, twine, or nails to attach them securely, spacing them to let the plants breathe, yet close enough to create a rhythm on the fence. In one quiet corner, you might grow mint for your tea. On another, let cheerful pansies peek through the bottle's curve. Each planter tells its own story, of reuse, of color, of the will to grow despite limits. And what's more beautiful than that? A fence once plain, now blooms not only with plants, but with purpose. It becomes a canvas, a vertical garden, a conversation between function and flair. And it all begins with a bottle most would throw away. So take a moment, stand before your fence, and imagine what could live there, not just plants, but a reflection of you. There's a quiet poetry in roots, tangled, weathered, unpredictable. Once buried beneath the earth, hidden from our eyes, they now rise again, not to support a tree, but to frame something just as alive, a garden shaped by hand and heart. Using old roots as garden edging isn't about control. It's about following the wild curves of nature and letting them guide the border of your space. Each root, gnarled and twisted, tells a different story. Some arch like question marks, others stretch like rivers frozen mid-flow. Together, they create a frame not of symmetry, but of soul. Preparing the roots is simple. Let them dry under the sun, brush off the dirt, and place them one by one along the edge of your garden beds or pathways. Don't force them into perfect lines. Let them wander a little. That's where the beauty lies. Plant low-growing flowers beside them, marigolds, thyme, or lavender, and watch how the soft petals contrast with the raw, cracked wood. As the seasons pass, moss may creep in, and small creatures might find shelter beneath. It becomes more than edging. It becomes a living sculpture, changing quietly with time. This kind of garden work isn't rushed. It's felt. It slows the hands. It brings you closer to the earth, and in doing so, reminds you that design isn't always about perfection. Sometimes, it's about reverence, about honoring what was once underground and letting it bloom above. In quiet corners of the world, where morning sun kisses old balconies and wooden fences, there hang stories made of paper and string. These baskets, woven from nothing but yesterday's news, carry today's life. Tiny seeds tucked inside soil, herbs gently unfurling, flowers cascading with color, all suspended in midair by hands that believed waste could become wonder. Woven newspaper is softer than it looks. Dip the strips in water. Twist them patiently. Weave them over a bowl or a jar. Let your fingers follow instinct. And when it dries, what you hold is more than a basket. It's a small act of care, a cradle for green things. Hang them where sunlight lingers, on a fence that felt too plain, along a patio beam that needed a little joy, maybe even beside your kitchen window, where basil and thyme will lean toward the warmth. Over time, the baskets soften. The print may fade. And that's all right. Everything in the garden changes. That's part of its poetry. What remains is the rhythm of making, planting, hanging, growing. This isn't just about decoration. It's about allowing space for beauty where there once was none. It's about quiet gestures that add color to gray mornings. And it's about remembering that even something as fragile as newspaper, when held with intention, can hold life. Some spaces don't need more plants or more color. They need something else, a sound, a rhythm. A gentle reminder that time can slow down if we let it. In a corner where the sun doesn't linger too long, a simple jug, perhaps forgotten in the back of a shed, is given a second chance. Tilted just right, resting on stone or brick, it begins to pour, not words, not tea, but silence shaped into motion. Water, always moving, always soft. Creating your own jug fountain isn't complicated. The tools are humble. The magic is in the patience. A clay or plastic jug, worn by years and weather, becomes the centerpiece. A small pump or solar panel brings the flow to life. And suddenly, your tiny patio hums with something ancient and quiet. Surround it with stones, floating petals, or creeping moss. Let the plants listen too. Let the wind join in. And you, sit close. Watch the surface ripple. Hear the drip, the fall, the whisper. This is more than decoration. It's a way of reclaiming peace, of bringing the sound of nature into concrete corners, and of proving, once again, that even the simplest vessel can hold something sacred, when filled with movement, memory, and care. A shattered plate, a chipped tile, pieces too small to fix but too lovely to forget. We save them, unsure why. And then, one quiet afternoon, they find their purpose, not on walls or floors, but nestled beside soil and blooms. Mosaic garden borders made from broken tiles are more than decoration. They are a celebration of imperfection, of stories once told in kitchens and bathrooms, now retold in flower beds and garden paths. There's no template, no need for precision. Each fragment fits where it fits. Like memories, like healing. You simply gather your pieces, old ceramic, porcelain shards, remnants of color and glaze, and begin placing them along the edge of your garden bed. Press them into the soil, one by one, letting the rhythm emerge naturally. Some shine under the sun, some are softened by time. Together, they form a border that sparkles after rain and catches light when the day begins to fade. This project doesn't require a large yard or expensive tools. A tiny space, a bit of patience, and a willingness to see beauty in the broken, that's all you need. And perhaps, as you kneel in the dirt and build something new from what was once discarded, you'll feel it too. The quiet joy of turning fragments into patterns. A reminder that in gardens, as in life, even broken things can bloom again if we know where to place them. Along the shoreline or buried beneath forgotten forest paths, nature leaves behind what it no longer needs. Driftwood softened by salt, roots once buried now bare to the wind. And when those pieces find their way into our hands, something quietly magical begins. A table, not built, but discovered. Crafting a tabletop from driftwood and roots is not about perfection. It's about presence. You don't measure twice and cut clean lines. Instead, you search for what already fits. You let each curve tell you where it wants to go. Some driftwood comes with sand still tucked in its grain. Some roots curve like sculpture, shaped by seasons of rain and time. Lay the pieces side by side, gently sanded but still wild. Let the gaps remain. Let the table breathe. Support it with roots that feel balanced, grounded, like they've always been waiting to carry something meaningful. It can live in the corner of a garden, under vines, near the scent of herbs. Or on a small patio, catching the sun as you write, sip coffee, or simply sit in silence. This is a table with no twin. It holds not just mugs and flower pots, but stories of ocean tides, fallen trees, and the beauty of giving shape to what was once forgotten. And perhaps, in building it, you'll find that what you're really crafting isn't furniture, but a pause. A place to land. A reminder that something rough, something weathered, can still hold peace. Not all stories are meant to be read. Some are meant to be felt, reimagined through texture, shadow, and quiet arrangement. Old newspapers carry time in their fibers. A yesterday that has passed, inked in columns, folded away, and often forgotten. But in the right hands, those pages become more than waste. They become art. On a plain wooden fence or a weathered shed wall, paper comes alive again. Woven, torn, rolled, layered. Each strip, each faded headline or fragment of image, tells a different part of something larger. A panel of woven print might hold a quiet rhythm. A paper mandala may pulse with balance. A collage of torn pages could echo memory. Creating newspaper wall art isn't about rules. You let the paper speak. You let your intuition guide your hands, over glue, across grain, into form. Some pieces are structured. Others are wild, freeform, abstract. All are honest. Add a frame, or let it flow directly against the wood. Let plants grow beside it, wind touch it, and rain stain it softly over time. This is living art, fragile, yet persistent, just like the lives once printed across its surface. And in making it, you may feel something stir. The gentle joy of transforming something disposable into something worth pausing for. A wall that once stood bare now becomes a gallery, not of perfection, but of presence. In a world where space is shrinking and silence is rare, sometimes all we need is a single wall and a bit of imagination. A vertical garden rack made from things once tossed aside. Wooden pallets left behind in alleys. Plastic bottles that held yesterday's drinks. Rusted tins and forgotten crates. Pieces that no longer had a place, until your hands gave them one. You don't need a sprawling backyard. You don't even need perfect tools. All you need is a wall that catches the sun, and the willingness to see not just what something was, but what it could become. With each layer of this vertical rack, something blooms. Herbs that wake with scent. Flowers that spill softly over edges. Small greens that sway gently, even when the world feels heavy. You can grow upward, when there's no more room to grow wide. Use what you have. Drill, tie, hang, arrange. Not with rules, but with rhythm. Let color guide you. Let function follow. Maybe mint grows in an old soup can. Maybe pansies live in a bottle once meant for soda. That's the quiet revolution of upcycling, giving beauty a second chance. And as the days go by, you'll see, this isn't just a garden. It's a vertical story of care, of creativity, of how even the smallest space, when filled with love and intention, can grow something truly alive. Not every root must stay underground. Some, once unearthed, still know how to hold, not the weight of trees, but the quiet beauty of daily life. In a small patio, or along a sun-worn fence, these roots return with purpose. Twisted, imperfect, and sculpted by nature's slow hand, they become hooks. Not factory-made, not uniform, but each one honest. Each one alive with character. You can find them on forest floors, by riverbanks, or hidden in piles of forgotten wood. Let them dry. Let their shape guide your design. With a bit of sanding, maybe a coat of light oil, the grain and curves begin to speak. Soft, elegant, full of age. Mounted on a garden wall, these roots become more than decor. They carry your gardening gloves, your sun hat, a tiny herb basket, the tools you reach for with dirty hands and a grateful heart. They don't just serve a function, they tell a story of reuse, of grounding, of bringing something once buried into the light again. And every time you pass by, perhaps you'll remember that nature doesn't always grow upward. Sometimes it grows inward, downward, deeper. And even when dug up, even when no longer rooted to soil, there's still beauty in the strength to hold. So let the roots hold something once more. Not just tools, but meaning. There's a kind of silence that invites sound. Not noise, but presence. The hush before a breeze. The stillness that listens. And then, a soft clink. The hollow music of old clay finding voice again. These are not store-bought chimes. They're not polished or predictable. They are fragments of jugs once poured, of vessels once held, now suspended in air, singing when the wind remembers. To make your own Kendi chimes, you need very little. Just broken pieces of terracotta or clay, softened by age and shaped by your hands. Drill gently. String them with care. Let them fall in uneven rhythms. That's where the beauty is, in the imperfection. Hang them under a pergola, on a quiet balcony, or from the lowest branch of a tree. Let the sunlight dance on their curves. Let their quiet songs echo through your garden like memories. The sound is earthy, hollow, honest. It doesn't try to impress. It simply reminds that even what's been broken, even what no longer holds water, can still hold meaning. So listen closely. The wind is speaking, and the clay remembers. A handful of soil, a curve of weathered root, and in between, a gathering of flowers that ask for nothing, only light and time. Creating a tiny flower bed framed by sculpted roots is a quiet art. You're not building a garden to impress. You're shaping a corner that speaks. One that feels hand-touched, earth-kissed. Choose roots that curve like water, not straight, not perfect, but full of story. Let them nestle into the ground like they've always belonged there. The lines don't need to match. Their imperfections are what soften the edge between the wild and the intentional. Inside the frame, you plant not just blooms, but feeling. Low flowers that glow in the sun. Soft green herbs that brush the wind. Each petal becomes more vivid when bordered by the raw, textured grain of root. Each color brighter against the neutral tones of time-worn wood. This is a space for breathing, for pausing. A place where your hands are reminded that beauty doesn't have to be big, or loud, or expensive. It can be something simple, something slow. A patch of life in a busy world. So let the roots embrace your garden. Let them cradle color. Let them shape calm. And in return, you may find it's not the flowers that are growing, it's you. When daylight fades and the garden grows still, there's something sacred about a soft light breaking through the dark. And sometimes, that light comes from the most unexpected place. An old clay jug, once used to carry water or sit forgotten in a dusty corner. Now, hollowed and carved, it glows from within. Not to hold, but to offer. Transforming a clay jug into a garden lantern is more than just craft. It's an invitation to slow down. To bring warmth into the edges of your yard, your patio, your soul. Start by finding a jug with character. Let its cracks remain, let its age show. Drill delicate patterns, stars, leaves, simple holes, and let the candlelight dance through them like stories told in shadow. Line a pathway. Hang them under a pergola. Tuck them beneath low bushes where their flicker surprises you. At night, they whisper. Not loudly, not urgently, but gently, reminding you that even silence can shimmer, that the past can be relit with purpose. And as you walk through your garden, barefoot or in thought, these lanterns become more than decoration. They become companions, holding space, holding glow, holding the promise that beauty doesn't always bloom in sunlight. Sometimes, it flickers in the quiet.